But if you're looking for characteristics of people who are change agents in the community,
yes,
and how change happens, I think there's a number of things that have to fall into place. You have to have a person or a group of people who are motivated to make change. You have to have, and usually that goes hand in hand with them wanting to get a solution to a particular problem.
yeah,
They have to have a huge amount of passion.
yeah,
So for people like the people involved in Zen, to put in the amount of hours that we do on just working in the organisation, you have to have people with a lot of passion and a big commitment.
yeah,
There has to be a degree of leadership, and we've been incredibly lucky to have Vivian Griffin, who started Zero Emissions Noosa, to A, have the foresight, and B, the leadership. So foresight and leadership are two other important characteristics or qualities you need to have in the mix. I've just taken over as president from Vivian, but part of the reason that the real reason that I joined Zen, because I was looking at all different community groups and where would I put my time. Two things. A, it was about renewable energy, which linked with my clean tech experience and passion. And B, Vivian was the leader at the time. And I've had a huge amount of respect for what she's done as a councillor in Noosa Council and Sunshine Coast Council. So I think that leadership and respect for the leadership is a key characteristic. Being able to take other people on the journey with you is really important.
yeah,
Because unless you get buy-in from the community or the particular group that you're working with, nothing happens. People might come for a while and then they get disheartened and go away. I think it's important to, usually like-minded people gather around a particular group. So the people who gather around Zen are people who are interested in renewable energy and sustainable transport. And they're our two key prongs that we work on. I think it's also about building the capacity of the people in the group, because, and this is what I did a lot of working in the third world, in developing economies, but it's about helping people, empowering people to achieve their potential, or the group to achieve its potential. So people then get motivated and inspired by being part of a group like that. So therefore they're more likely to be more committed. And rather than saying, well, I'm spending, 20 hours a week doing work for Zen, blah, 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 and resenting it, they're more likely to say, when you ask them to do something else, they're more likely to say yes.
Yeah.
But there is a line. And so I guess it's about, if you're leading a group, you've got to read all that and work out who's, willing to do what and how much. But I think the key underlying thing that I've learned on these journeys with clean tech, with working in developing countries, with groups like Zero Emissions Noosa, is often the best opportunities come out of left field. It might not be something that you've planned. Working in the third world really taught me this. It might be something that you have absolutely no idea you're going to do, 3 months before, but an opportunity comes up and you just run with it, and that then presents other opportunities and things snowball. So while I'm a firm believer in planning, and I've introduced strategic planning every year to Zen, you also have to be flexible in that plan to be able to take opportunities as they arise.
Yes, that's brilliant. What the community group that I studied, the Katie Rose Cottage, the hospice there.
Yeah.
And that seems to be the most effective community group that I've come across, with 280 volunteers, 4 shops, drivers,
Yeah.
The cleaning staff, the nurses, so very many volunteers, a big budget. But I was looking at the chair, and he's just a really dynamic person. And then you walk around the gardens, and you've got the garden crews. And I say, who runs this? And he kind of goes, oh, well, we kind of decide what we're going to do, and then we bring a plan to the chair. The chair always says, yeah, that's great. So they feel as though they have a lot of agency and a lot of capacity to do what they want to do in the gardens. And so I asked the chair about that. He says, yeah, I want my people to take charge, to put their name on it, to take their stamp and run with these things. I don't micromanage. And but they said the most important thing, like you said, is they have to take the people on the journey, and with a common solution, and the common goal, of course, is to help these people out in the hospice. And everybody is united behind that goal. They're committed to it. They've got great leadership, and the teams are not autonomous, but they have their own power and their own feel to be able to do what they want to do, and help and feel important, not being told what to do, but offering up.
Yes.
So yeah, but I'm glad that you said be open to opportunities from the unexpected, because I didn't consider that. Yeah.
And look for, I haven't written this down, but look for linking and leveraging.
Linking and leveraging.
What I'm trying to encourage Zen to do is, we can't do all this ourselves. Who else has done something that we can link to and we can leverage from? So we've just started building relationships with a group in Brisbane called Beyond Zero Emissions Brisbane, and on the Gold Coast as well. So what we're doing, my aim in doing this is because then we could have groups that cover SEQ that maybe can work on projects together, or can add voices to lobby and advocate for government. And this came out of last year. Vivian and I were working on environmental upgrade agreements, which is a system that happens in Victoria, South Australia and New South Wales, where councils are the facilitators of payments for projects that can be environmental, that can upgrade buildings. So for example, if a pensioner comes along and wants to put on a solar system on their house, but they can't afford to pay that money up front, through finance that is arranged specifically for these projects, they can borrow that money and then pay it back every year as an additional payment on top of their rates. And the money goes to council, and council facilitates that payment back to the borrower. So it means they can get the solar system now, they can save the money on their energy bill, but they didn't have to pay for it up front. They might pay it off over 10 or 20 years. So we were looking to try and get this introduced into Queensland, because we see that it would help businesses and households to be able to do some of these upgrade projects to be more energy efficient, or to install solar. However, when we had a meeting with one of the ministers, because that whole being able to do that involved changing state legislation and Brisbane City Council legislation. And it also fell across 2 different ministerial portfolios. So the state government was open to doing this sort of thing, because they looked at the framework from other states and they could see how this could be useful in Queensland. But there needed to be a whole lot of stakeholders who lined up and ticked off boxes before they would go down the path of trying to implement legislative change to make it happen. So there had to be LGAQ, which meant there had to be a whole lot of councils from a whole lot of different areas in Queensland. There had to be the Property Council. there had to be Brisbane City Council because it's governed under a separate act of Parliament. And then there had to be a key advocate or advocates for this to happen. So just as zero emissions Noosa, we probably did well to get the hearing of a state government minister, but that wasn't enough to get this happening. So that's why I've been putting forward to Zero Emissions Noosa that we need to build a collaborative framework with other groups around the state who are doing similar things to what we're doing. So when it comes to something like changing something big like that, you've got a lot of voices from a lot of geographical areas that can then advocate to LGAQ or the Property Council or the government, and it's much more likely to be successful than if you just got one little environment group from one place.
Yeah.